maybe I have to give a little bit of background. So I don't know if you remember in the presentation, there was mentioned the SAI Capacity Development Fund, which I also mentioned, which was established by SECO and the World Bank. And the idea was really to coordinate efforts of donors and have kind of a global vehicle where the SAIs who need capacity development the most would receive it. So the fund is based in Washington, but they have we have invested $5 million, and they've been distributed to around 11 countries or regional inter-SAI bodies. One of them is Mozambique. And I've chosen Mozambique, although this project is really in the beginning. So actually, I cannot give you so much on the outcomes, but I think it was just a good way to raise questions and to discuss the support to SAIs in general. Another information is that we have fully committed these funds, and at the moment we are discussing on how to continue our support to SAIs, because as we said before, this is one of SECO's core priorities, and we might work with IDI on a more programmatic approach for countries or SAIs to implement development strategy based on the SAI PMF tool that I just presented. And there are other options. We might work with AFRO-SAI, which are the regional inter-SAI bodies. But we are currently in discussion and we don't know how the second phase would look like. But back to Mozambique. So this is a relatively small project through this global fund. It's around $500,000, and it's mostly in training and certification of auditors. So in Mozambique, they follow the judiciary model as a code of accounts. And as far we are actually, the grant was, so it's a recipient executed project, and the grant was signed in April 2016. And until now, there was like a huge delay in approving the terms of reference and in the recruitment of the consulting firm. So we're very close to recruiting the consulting firm, which will design the training program based on the needs of the auditors. And I think that is maybe an inherent problem of providing assistance to SAIs, because I showed you the indicators on independence. And the core functionality in SAI needs is independence, including from donors. So they can never be seen to give in to outside pressures, be this the government, be this donors who have certain expectations. They just cannot be rushed. Because otherwise, how will they be perceived as independents? How will their reports matter if we don't believe as citizens that they are independent? So there's one part is to be constitutionally independent. Another part is the perception. They have to be perceived as independent. And that is why sometimes as a donor, I mean, this has been our experience, is not the easiest to work with SAI. And that is really a dilemma, because on the one hand side, we think it's so crucial, like we should be there, because it's so essential, including for our aid portfolio, which depends a lot on how the SAI is actually scrutinizing public funds, including donor funds. And on the other hand, they are independent, they are strong-minded, and they should be, so sometimes it is more difficult to work with them than with other institutions. The other reflection I had on the Mozambique case is, so I'm not sure for the ones who are aware, but it was like, I think it was more than a year ago, there were a huge undisclosed debt that has come up, and that actually the Mozambique government has guaranteed, and to state-owned companies, but basically the guarantees were called. And then actually they have been never disclosed to the public or to donors, which was a huge issue when Switzerland suspended their, and all donors suspended their assistance. And in this, I think it's also like an important reminder, and that's why I like the Mozambique example, is that, of course, and I think maybe this goes also back to my first slide, you remember SAIs, they are part of the PMF system, and they can only be as good as the weakest link of this system. And they depend on, especially in the parliamentary model, they depend on other institutions to follow up on their recommendation. They depend on parliament to put pressure. They depend on the civil society to put pressure. So I think it's important to understand how important they are on the one hand side, how crucial, and at the same time understand the limitation and don't think that, you know, it's like the silver bullet to support and have a strong side. I think it's one important element of having accountable and transparent institution and prevent corruption and mismanagement. I think it's a very important part, but also be mindful on the limitations. And my question would have been, I mean, a bit to maybe open the discussion, or is to think, could a stronger SAI may have prevented what happened in Mozambique? Personally, my answer would be that it could have not, because in this case it was really maybe outside of the PMF. It was really done with an intent to deceive institutions and the public. That is very difficult, but at the same time we should ask ourselves, like, how could there been a way to prevent that, or to, yeah. So I think that is I would say more reflection on Mozambique than an actual case study, but so I'm handing over to you.